On the night of June 1st, 2009, Air France Flight 447 was cruising from Rio de Janeiro to Paris. This wasn't just any plane. It was a state-of-the-art Airbus A330, a true flying computer. It had the best autopilot, the most advanced sensors, and in the cockpit, 3 highly trained pilots. As it flew over the vast, dark Atlantic Ocean, it entered a storm. The pitot tubes, the sensors that measure the plane's speed, froze over with ice. For a few critical moments, the plane's computer had no idea how fast it was going. So, the computer did exactly what it was programmed to do. It disconnected. It handed control back to the human pilots. Its message was simple. I am confused. You fly. What happened next was 4 minutes of confusion and horror. The pilots, who had spent thousands of hours watching the autopilot fly the plane perfectly, had lost that raw, visceral feel of flying manually at high altitude. One of the co-pilots pulled back on the control stick, raising the plane's nose. This was a fatal mistake. The plane stalled, losing lift, and started falling out of the sky like a stone. The stall warning blared through the cockpit. Stall! Stall! But the pilots, overwhelmed by the sudden chaos and conflicting information, didn't understand. They kept pulling the nose up, making the situation worse. In just over 3 minutes, they fell 38,000 feet. The plane crashed into the ocean. All 228 people on board were lost. Investigators later concluded the most chilling fact of all. The plane was perfectly... If the pilots had simply let go of the controls, the aircraft's natural aerodynamics would have caused the nose to drop. The plane would have regained speed, and they would have recovered. They didn't die because the machine failed. They died because the machine was too good. It was so reliable, so efficient, that the humans had forgotten how to be pilots. This is the automation paradox. It's a theory that states the more reliable and efficient an automated system is, the more dangerous it can become when it finally fails. Because as the machine gets smarter, the human operator, well, they can get dumber. This idea was first articulated back in 1983 by a cognitive psychologist named Bainbridge in her paper, The Ironies of Automation. She argued that automation doesn't remove the human from the equation. It just changes their role, and often for the worse. We think automation reduces the need for human skill, but in reality, it actually increases the demand for highly specialized skills, but only for that tiny fraction of time when an emergency strikes. Here's the trap. First, the routine. The machine handles 99.9% of the work. It's flying straight and level, driving on the highway, or writing a line of code. Second, atrophy. Because the human is just a supervisor, watching the machine work, their skills start to degrade. They get bored. They get complacent. They zone out. This is known as passive fatigue. Third, the edge case. The machine suddenly encounters a scenario it wasn't programmed for. Ice on the sensors, a weirdly placed traffic cone, an undefined variable in the code. Fourth, the handoff. The machine abruptly quits and hands control back to the human. And fifth, the failure. The human, who is now bored, out of practice, and mentally cold, is suddenly asked to solve the hardest possible problem, instantly. The better the autopilot, the less practice the pilot gets. So when that autopilot finally breaks, it breaks at the worst possible moment, handing control to the least prepared person. And this isn't just about planes. It's about our own brains. We are actively automating our memory. This is called cognitive offloading. Think about it. In the past, you had to remember phone numbers. You had to remember directions, building a mental map of your city. You had to remember historical dates for a test. Now, we have Google and GPS. The common thinking is, why should I memorize it if I can just look it up? This seems incredibly efficient. It frees up brain space for more important things, right? But researchers have found that it creates a dangerous dependency. A study on GPS navigation showed that people who frequently use GPS have less gray matter density in their hippocampus, the very part of the brain responsible for spatial navigation, than people who do. We are literally shrinking the part of our brain that helps us navigate the world. If your GPS breaks or your phone dies, you're not just inconvenienced. You are fundamentally lost. We've lost the ability to read a physical map or even use the sun for direction. The automation paradox suggests that, by offloading these so-called lower-level tasks, we might be eroding the very foundation required for higher-level thinking. You can't be a great chef if you don't know the basic skill of how to chop an onion. You can't be a great mathematician if you've forgotten how to multiply without a calculator. The most urgent, modern example of this is generative AI in the workplace. Tools like ChatGPT or Copilot are changing how we work. A junior developer can now just ask, "Write a Python script to scrape this website," and it's done. A junior marketer can say, "Write a promotional email," and there it is. It's fast, and it's incredibly efficient. But here's the danger. A senior developer became a senior because they spent 10 years writing bad code, debugging it, struggling through problems, and learning the first principles from the ground up. The junior developer who relies on AI skips that struggle. They skip the learning. They get the output without ever understanding the process. So, in 5 or 10 years, when that junior developer is promoted to a senior role, will they have the deep, intuitive knowledge to fix the AI when it makes a mistake or hallucinates? Will they understand the underlying architecture of the system they're supposed to be managing? Or will they just be prompt engineers, completely helpless without their bot? We risk creating a generation of operators, not a generation of experts. We are automating the very training gym of the mind. So, what's the solution? Do we smash the machines and go back to the Dark Ages? No. The answer lies in designing human-in-the-loop systems that keep the human engaged and sharp. One idea is adaptive automation. The system shouldn't do everything. It should be designed to force the human to perform random checks. Some trains use a dead man S-switch, a pedal the operator has to press every minute to prove they're still awake and alert. An even better system would be an AI that collaborates. It could say, "I recommend this course of action. Do you agree? And why?" This forces the human to think critically, not just passively accept the machine's answer. Second is simulation training. Pilots spend hours in simulators, practicing nothing but failures. If we're going to use AI to write code, then we need to schedule time to code without AI, just to keep the mental muscles alive. We need manual mode days. Finally, there's the centaur model, an idea promoted by chess grandmaster Gary Cat. He argues that a human working with an AIA centaur is far more powerful than an AI alone. But for this to work, the human must be the strategic leader, not a passive data sitter. You have to maintain the knowledge and the confidence to say no to the machine. The automation paradox is one of the defining challenges of our century. We are building God's machines that are faster, stronger, and, in many ways, smarter than we are. It's incredibly tempting to just let them drive, let them think, and let them fly. And when the screen goes black, when the alarms start screaming, and when the ice covers the sensors, the only thing that will save you is your own unautomated biological brain. Don't let it atrophy. Sometimes, take the long way home without your GPS. Write that first draft without the chatbot. Fly the plane by hand for a while. Keep your hand on the wheel, because one day, the machine will let go. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, consider subscribing for more content like this.